Hi, I'm Valerie Engelhart, and in this video, I want to take things a little easy. I want to have fun kind of painting something cute, something that isn't quote unquote fine art. So I looked on Unsplash and just sort of roamed around and found this reference image of like a Japanese restaurant sign, and it had fish. I think I was specifically looking for pufferfish, and then this popped up, and I went, heck yeah, here we go. So I'm going to be painting three seafood motifs, a red fish, a blue pufferfish, and a crab. So I'm working with a limited palette per usual, and I'm just going to work straight from whatever colors are there. I've put down a wash of Daniel Smith Permanent Red, and I'm just dragging some of that pigment out to make that upper thin. And I'm using Fabriano 1264 watercolor paper. It is student grade, and a size 8 silver black velvet round brush. The color I'm pulling out now is Schminke. It is from the Tundra Ultra Granulating set. This is Tundra Orange. I like it because it's very similar in color to Raw Umber, but it's a little warmer, and there's a bit of a pink undertone, so if it starts to split, you get a variation of color. And I love those kind of surprises. This is the only time I'm going to pull out the Rockwell Art Peach Fairy. It is a cool pink because on my reference photo, the lips were pink, but I wanted to keep it toned down. I've got two pinks in my palette, and the other one is a lot more vibrant, more floral. So I opted for this one. And I've got no sketch. So I've got three elements, and I'm doing my best to keep them centered. But this painting is really just being done for fun. And to show that just because I am a fine artist, it doesn't mean that everything I do has to be the newest, biggest, best thing, most inspired thing ever. And it doesn't need to be that way for any artist. I wanted to paint something fishy. And I saw a sign and went, that looks fun. Let's have fun. So this color looks a lot like indigo, or maybe a Payne's blue gray, but this one is a Rockwell Art color called Cosmic Sound. I really do love the Rockwell Art paints because many of them, at least that I have, will granulate and split into multiple colors. The granulation, I have noticed, has taken the watercolor world by storm, in that a lot of brands now have been coming out with their own versions of ultra granulating paints that not just granulate beautifully, but split into multiple colors. And I am not a brand loyalist. I'm a bit of a brand slut. I will try anything. Something nice about using the cheaper papers, other than there isn't a pressure to make everything perfect, is you get more, like, I find more cauliflowers, more textures, because in a lot of fine art pieces, those are no-nos. Those are things that you don't want. And so that's why the expensive papers will handle things really well. You won't get as many of those cauliflowers unless you're trying, which I do. But on this kind of paper, they happen much more frequently just because of the makeup. And a lot of people, especially in the illustrative stage, for illustrative works that are watercolor, I find a lot of buyers expect to see those blooms, those textures that you would only find in watercolor. I guess I shouldn't speak for all buyers, but those that would look for something like this are usually expecting to see those textures that you would just find in watercolor. And who am I to deny the market what they desire? Actually, tons of times, because sometimes that's just art. All right, but you don't want to hear me going on about sales and marketing, do you? No, we are here to paint. So the crab, yeah, I got it a little off center. It's fine. If I really want to make this perfect, I could have sketched first. And I can always correct this digitally in Photoshop, where I can remove a background and then center my images better, center my painting motifs. And something I like about these particular motifs is because even though they're technically loose, they're not atmospheric. All of the edges on the outline are hard. So I can easily separate them to do things like make a t-shirt design or stickers, or, as I would normally do, make a pattern. I think this would be a really funky, cool wallpaper pattern for like a nautical themed nursery. And those bold, bright colors. Red seems to be really in right now in home interiors. And that data is coming from all of the magazines that I've been reading. If you enjoy home interiors, take a look. There's a lot of red, particularly warm, kind of rustic reds. This one's a bit bright, but perfect for a nautical design where bold reds and navy blues are prominent. Now, there is a bit of dimension on the eyes, so I'm using my brush to just lift off some of that paint. So I use a damp brush, lift the damp paint, wipe it off on my paper towel, and go at it again until I'm happy with how it looks. So things have dried enough. I'm going to go in for my second layer, and I'm going to put the eye on that fish. And then using a thicker application of the red, go in and paint some of those darker elements like the fin, put on a few scales, a few extra lines, since this is more illustrative. And this video is sped up 150%, so even though it looks like I'm being slow and careful now, this is sped up a bit. I was being pretty careful. Also, things were still pretty wet, and I was trying not to smudge the paint, which actually happens later, and I end up with a big black mark on the lower right of the paper. But luckily, Photoshop baby, I was able to take that out. Okay, moving on to that middle fish, and just going in darker with that cosmic sound. This kind of paper dries pretty quickly, which is ideal for doing these sort of playful motifs. So instead of having to wait hours for something to get fully dry, I really only had to wait minutes. And these were just so fun. I really wish that I'd been painting with my daughter during this, because I think she would have been delighted. You know what? Who says I can't do it again? Different colors, maybe different sea creatures. Oh, there's the smudge. All right, I want to separate the crab's legs a little bit, so I am using that cosmic sound to do so. Once I've established colors, I don't want to add any more. I prefer limited palettes. That way, everything is cohesive in color, and it prevents me from getting overwhelmed by choices. Once I've laid down my few colors, those are it. Make what I have work. But that does mean when I paint, whether it is illustrative or a serious piece, I make sure that I have at least one paint that gets very dark so I can get deep dark values. And there I am starting to paint some of the Japanese hiragana on the fish that I see in the reference photo. I was considering leaving them out, but I just liked how it looked. Though I can only read the top two characters, this bottom one, I don't know. All right, I let those dry because now I need to go in with gouache. And if I'm going to add gouache, that paint needed to be completely dry, particularly where I'm going to want to outline some eyes, because those eyes were staying quite wet, and gouache and watercolor will mix and fuse. They are both water mediums. Gouache is just opaque. So I'm using titanium white, and I am going in straight from the tube because I want this paint to be thick. I need it to stand out. I want it to have kind of that, oh, what is the word? Impasto? I want it thick and textured. Because I don't know if you know this, gouache will also dry paler. If I had taken some of my dry gouache, reconstituted it, and even if I'd gone on pretty thick, it still would have been a bit transparent, and I would just have to layer it a few times. And I know that from experience, because I've tried it. And I'm just using gouache to create some highlights, give a little extra dimension. But I don't want to put it everywhere. I don't want this to get overwhelmed with the gouache. But I am adding it also on the belly area of the fish. Even though it doesn't stand out a ton, it does just enough to be worth it. But of course, white on a light color isn't going to stand out as much as white on a dark color. So that's why those lines on the fish belly do not stand out as much as like the dots on that middle fish. And then this crab is where I need to do most of that separation work. And just have fun with it. And to have it stand out more, I'm going to outline it in gouache. I don't need to on the upper two fish because the sign, the character, is a dark value against a lighter midtone value. Versus down here on the crab, it's kind of dark on dark. So how do we separate them? Add some white. I really like how it looks. It's so fun. And here's the finished painting. So if you liked this video, press that like button so I know to make more like this. And if you want to see more, subscribe because I make videos every Thursday. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.